want to crossbreed an elephant with a pig.
Brilliant idea. Huge elephant-sized pigs.
No, we want to make little potbelly elephants that people can keep in their houses as pets.
Oh, that's an even better idea. Come on in. I'm so pleased that your children are interested in genetic engineering.
It's okay, Fluffy. Nobody's gonna hurt you.
It's thanks to the wonders of genetic engineering that soon there will be an end to hunger, disease, pollution, even war. I have created things that will change the world for the better. For instance, here is a monkey with 4 asses.
How does that make the world better?
And here, of course, is my 4-assed ostrich and my 4-assed mongoose.
Do you have anything besides just animals with 4 asses?
Oh, well, I suppose so. Oh, yes, over here. Here I have rats spliced with ducks, and gorillas spliced with mosquitoes. And here I have rabbits spliced with fish to make little bunny fish.
Hey, these bunny ears are tied on with little strings.
And over here is Swiss cheese spliced with chalk and a beard.
Well, what about our pot-bellied elephant?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, children, but pig and elephant DNA just won't splice. Haven't you ever heard that song by Loverboy?
Which song is that?
Pig and elephant DNA just won't splice. However, maybe I could help you add a few asses to that swine of yours.
You can keep your hands off of Fluffy's ass.
You know, it's amazing what we can do with a little blood sample these days.
Ow!
What? Oh, excuse me.
Wait, what are you taking Stan's blood for?
Oh, pardon me, I tripped. Could I have some hair, please?
Watch out, Stan! Genetic engineers are crazy! Come on, Fluffy!
Hello. It is 2:36 p.m. afternoon, Friday, July 19th, 2024. Something weird going on with my audio right now. It has a little bit of a metallic sound to it. I'm not quite sure where that is being introduced. But I have a bad feeling that I could probably spend a while now. Was that take it out? Nope. Okay. Well, whatever. We're just going to have to go with it. I don't. Let's start off with Event 201. Okay, you've heard of Event 201 because I'm calling today's show the real Event 201. If I open up a browser and if I type in Event 201, I don't even think I have to do the com or the org. It's right there. It's right up on top. Johns Hopkins, the tabletop exercise, Event 201. It reads, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, a high-level pandemic exercise on October 18th, 2019, in New York City, New York. The exercise illustrated areas where public-private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences. When many people first saw this, after the pandemic started, of course, this was the proof of conspiracy. How could you have an Event 201 talking about some sort of respiratory RNA pandemic? It's almost as if the zoonotic event, if you will, happened like the same week or a couple of weeks afterwards. And of course, it's very high production, and they're giving away little stuffed coronavirus dolls. It was just off the charts. And you have the director of the CIA there. You have military leaders at this table. It's obviously, you just can't have the pandemic and not look at this. And of course, it's funded by Bill Gates, and Bill Gates is a psychopath, as everyone knows, who wants to fund world depopulation. And then they actually issue a statement about the novel coronavirus and our pandemic exercise, that they're not related. And of course, that only fuels the speculation. And I got sucked into this. How stupid that you're going to spend trillions of dollars on this exercise and you're not going to have an IT person spend a couple of hours taking the site down? Really? It just doesn't make any sense in retrospect. So this is what we were meant to look at. And everyone knows what Event 201 is. In fact, if I went to Wikipedia, do they even have an Event 201 page? Well, it's not its own page, but there's a whole subsection here of Event 201. And it's on the page for the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. So it's mentioned. It doesn't have its own page, but it does get a big shout out. Now, maybe Event 201 is not the real event to look at. Event 201 is the fancy cover story. The level of video production that went into Event 201 is astounding. Multiple cameras, excellent lighting, getting everyone there, all of the treats, the goodie bags, the novel coronavirus doll, if you will, that was handed out. I don't do event planning, but I've been in part of enough events to know that several $100,000, if not $1 million or more, was spent on that thing. Just so some people can sit around a table and have a very scripted discussion about videos which took several months to produce, and they already knew everything. Earlier in the pandemic, this is in 2020, I did a video where I asked a question, when was Event 201 scheduled? Because one could get some information about Event 201 learning when it was scheduled. It obviously was not scheduled the week ahead of time. The level of production that went into it, I could tell that. At one point, I found some metadata. I found some data on Twitter where one of the event organizers or promoters, I found them in a tweet in late 2018. It might have been January 2019, but I believe it was late 2018, promoting Event 201. So while everyone says Event 201 is so conspiratorial because it happened at the same time that the zoonotic event would have happened, I, on the other hand, said, well, when was Event 201 planned? Because the foreknowledge goes back at least to then. So Event 201 the planning started in late 2018. Was there another Event 201? Wouldn't it be amazing if there was another event like 201, except it was actually far more damning? Before we even get there, let's just look at the attendees, the players. So let's go down the list of here. Chris Elias, was one name that I found to be quite interesting. CEO of PATH, an international nonprofit. He's with the CDC, University of Washington, Creighton University. Interesting, but I couldn't really tie him into a ton of things. I'm not saying he's not well connected, but there's the CDC director of China, I believe, George Gao. That's how he is described. Of course, he has a degree from Oxford. Obviously an important person. Yet, someone I rarely talk about. For some reason, he doesn't seem to be one of the most among the most conspiratorial players. I'm just saying, maybe I'm missing something. I'm not trying to give anyone here a pass. My research is very organic. As things come up, I follow the leads. As I get, my gut tells me I need to look into something, I go with it. All right? I don't just look at the people who are at the main conspiratorial event and say, these are obviously the most important names. Now, clearly, everyone here has insight. Obviously, these people are important scientists and business leaders and thought leaders and policy directors and all this stuff. Obviously. But it's just noteworthy that almost no one on this list really winds up being part of my Avril Haines. Again, look, director of the CIA, research scholar at Columbia University. Come on. Of course she's an important person. I don't know a lot about her. I'm just not that familiar. She might be incredibly important and powerful, way more than I know. But in this world of the engineered pandemic and figuring out what countermeasures are going to be used and controlling the narrative on the web in particular, I just haven't found her to be that present. Again, I'm not saying she's unimportant, but you'll understand the point I'm trying to make in a moment, okay? Keep that in mind as we look at these names. Let's go over here. So, if you watched my last several videos, just a series of inquisitions led myself and Jonathan Cooey, actually, as well. We've been kind of working on this together to have some questions about Lee-Meng Yan. Now, I really haven't known much about her. I know that she was interviewed by Jonathan Cooey, PhD, before. I know that she was very much of a team worst-case scenario person. And I think this is actually the cover slide of a video I just made sharing a presentation of hers that I found from 2018. Now, to review, her story is that she came to the United States in 2020 sometime, almost a fugitive, if you will, or she was brought here under tight security involving both with some funding or security, I guess, provided by Steve Bannon of the War Room and this other Chinese billionaire who I don't really understand that well. He's probably not even a billionaire, or maybe he's the richest person. Maybe he's a trillionaire. But it's sort of like a Kim.com. Somehow this guy got created, and he provides this interesting James Bond espionage type role, okay? This virologist, Lee-Meng Yan, in Hong Kong, the story is that she was asked to look at a novel coronavirus in late 2019 by her director, her manager, if you will. And she found some things that really concerned her about the pathogenicity of this new coronavirus. And I think the way it's characterized is that it was very deadly, and it was also airborne. And the deadliness of it and the fact that it was so easily transmissible through the air are two things which I believe she said the Chinese government was saying weren't true, in particular the Chinese Communist Party. So she wanted more attention brought to these things, but her manager said, no, let's not bring any attention to that. I found some suggestions that she had mentioned publicly that her manager, her advisor, was a man named Leo Poon, L-E-O, last name P-O-O-N, presumably a PhD as well, also at the University of Hong Kong, which is where she was working. Now, it's just not just a regular university. It's actually a department that's funded by the World Health Organization as well. She doesn't mention that very often. Maybe it's superfluous. Maybe it's unnecessary. But whatever the case, she doesn't mention that very often. Earlier newspaper articles, which I can find in like May or so, mention Leo Poon. Lee-Meng Yan has been published on several papers, 10 to 20 or so. Probably a lot more now because she's put her name on a bunch of papers after the pandemic related to her knowledge about lab leak, hypothesis, etc. Having come to the United States, she was immediately lifted and given visibility by Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, and she wound up on all these other shows, including, for example, Jonathan Cooey's show. And she would talk about how bad it is, how bad the pandemic is, and how China's lying, etc. Okay, I mean, whatever, that's fine. I'm certainly in no position here, sitting in the middle of New England to know what's going on over there. So, okay. Who might have questioned this PhD? And that was back in 2020 and then early 2021. And I don't know what she's been up to since then. But anyways, a series of just oddball coincidences led Jonathan Cooey and myself to go, I wonder if there was anything fishy about her story. So we dig in and we find that, okay, she's presented at this conference, framing the response to emerging virus infections. Interesting. Between October 14th to October 18th. Now, as we just said a few moments ago, Event 201 was October 18th, 2019. It's right there. October 18th, 2019. This other event, and again, I'm making the case that this is the real Event 201. I'm going to call it Event 101. Maybe I'll think of a better name for that. Or Event 1. Event 200. I don't know. We'll think of something, right? But this is October 18th, 2018. Exactly 1 year before Event 201 was this event framing the response to emerging virus infections. Okay, so a virologist presenting at an event framing the response to emerging virus infections in Hong Kong, she's University of Hong Kong, not a big deal. There are hundreds of these stupid virus events every year. They're all over the place. There's so many virologists. I think there are actually as many virologists as there are viruses. I mean, it's ridiculous how many virologists there are. And many of them, assuming they're not students, once they get into corporations or tenure or whatever, they're pretty well paid. Not to mention they have these expensive conferences they're flown around to. And then there's nonprofit organizations, NGOs. So we find a recording of Lee-Meng Yan presenting at this conference in 2018. I don't know much about this conference. So let's walk through the exercise of learning more about this conference. All right. Now, first things first here, I found the recording of Lee-Meng Yan on a website called KeystoneSymposia.org. It's like a conference organizing site. I think it's a little bit more than just post your video here. It's not just like a YouTube for conferences. You can actually sometimes host full virtual conferences. You could put content online. They have different tracks. I don't think they have any particular allegiance, but you can see the people who are typically present, and you can sort of get an idea, right? Anthony Fauci is oftentimes with KeystoneSymposia.org, for example. Oh, as a matter of fact, it's noteworthy that the paper that Lee-Meng Yan is presenting here was in part, and I don't mean just like 2%, I mean probably at least 20 to 40 or 60% funded by Anthony Fauci and NIAID. That doesn't mean she's an NIAID employee. There's actually like an NIAID, matrixed organization at this Hong Kong university. And the very first reference on the paper that she's presenting here is Anthony Fauci exclusively. So she's at a conference. Okay, she's presenting a paper that primarily cites Fauci like 10 or 20 times about using different mixes of influenza vaccines. The paper was funded by Fauci. There's a NIAID sort of like pipeline into this Hong Kong university. They're all over the place. It's not like Hong Kong University is unique, okay? I'm trying to leave as much wiggle room here as possible. And the platform, which is sharing her work, also features a lot of Anthony Fauci shared videos, including like we finally have a vaccine for HIV/AIDS. from late 2019 or something like that. You'll find a lot of Fauci videos on this Keystone Symposium site. So I noticed that another key presentation that's here was advancing towards a general solution for a coronavirus vaccine. Now, the date posted is approximately the same, but when you see this date posted of November 9th, 2018, that just means the date that the video was released. This was actually recorded between October 14th and October 18th, 2018, meaning that this presentation also happened at this event that Lee-Meng Yan presented at. So Lee-Meng Yan is presenting at an event about emerging diseases, and another presenter there is Kizzmekia Corbett. Kizzmekia Corbett also basically kind of works for Fauci. She's a senior person at the NIAID. And during COVID-19, I believe she ran the trials for Moderna, for the Vaccine Research Center, for Fauci. And she's also presenting at this event on October 2018. We're going to call it Event 101, okay? At Event 101, where she's talking about a coronavirus vaccine for a novel coronavirus. And throughout the presentation, Kizzmekia is actually saying that what we need to do is we need to vaccinate against the spike protein. So almost all the technologies which have been thrown out there and used and tested or whatever for COVID-19 are being discussed here side by side with Lee-Meng Yan's presentation. And not only is Lee-Meng Yan's presentation tied up with Fauci, it also effectively leads to the conclusion of what we need is a universal flu vaccine and something beyond recombinant DNA. If you read between the lines, her presentation was also saying that we need this technology. And by the way, I got paint all over my hands and cuts, so I apologize for the mess there. Now, certainly, there's more than these two people presenting here. So I want to learn more about this conference. So through a series of clicks, I learned that there is this conference called Framing the Response to Emerging Infections, as I mentioned earlier, okay? And here's a screenshot of it here. You can see it's kind of a big event. Probably, 200 or so people are attending. So this is not just a joke, but maybe it's a small event, all right? I want to learn more about this event. Matter of fact, I want to see who's presenting there, and I want to see their presentations, because right now, all I have is Kizzmekia Corbett and Lee-Meng Yan. Now, the Corbett and Lee-Meng Yan presentations are on this KeystoneSymposia.org site. You can't just play them. You have to sort of like sign up, but it's a free sign-in. I did it. You can't download the videos, so what I did was I played them, and I recorded them, and then I posted them publicly, because I want people to know this stuff is out there. If they're upset that they lost a couple of subscriptions, will sue me, because this is about saving a lot of lives, and this is about my continued fighting back against people that allowed the opioid epidemic to happen for their own stupid, selfish, gain-of-function novel virus narrative purposes, making them complicit in murder. So somewhere on here is a link. Here it is, KeystoneSymposia.org/18S2. So it's a unique ID for the conference. And if I go there, it's deleted. So Keystone Symposia has deleted their conference page for this October 14th to 18th, 2018 event. All right. Well, you can't keep things online forever. But I can find a lot of their other older content is still online. So now I'm suspicious. So now what we do is we go to the Wayback Machine and we type in that address. Now, I noticed that if I typed in www.keystonesymposia.org/18S2, it finds nothing. So I don't understand how the algorithm on Wayback Machine works. I thought it would be more flexible than that, but in this case, I actually needed to just go keystonesymposia.org and cut out the HTTPS and the www. And fortunately, there's been 3 or 4 backups of it, okay, or whatever, several days of backups. Some in 2018, none in 2019, none in 2020, one in 2021, and one in 2022. If I go to the year 2018, I can find the last backup here on August 8th, 2018. So this is obviously, a couple months before the event itself. And fortunately, hey, I can find a website. This is what their website looked like before the event. So this is that 18S2, framing the response to emerging virus infections. And this also says S2 in the title. I don't know what the significance of that means. Meeting organizers. I'm not familiar with these names. Ralph Tripp, Suresh Mahalingam, John W. Lowenthal, Andrew G. Bean, B-E-A-N, and Malik Pierce, P-E-I-R-I-S, Pierce. And it's at the Lee Shaw Key Lecture Center, Centennial Campus, University of Hong Kong, Pak Fu Lam, Hong Kong. And we can get the conference agenda here. And again, the agenda is going to tell me a bunch of college students. Again, I don't mean to dismiss it. I don't mean to say that there can't be a lot of young scientists there with great ideas. But I'm just curious, I mean, sometimes companies will have events for like co-ops day for young employees. And it's an event to opportunity for sometimes directors to see young employees talk more openly about things because they're not, calloused from years of living in corporations. So there's sort of like a welcoming on Sunday, October 14th, to what we're going to call Event 101. On October 15th, 2018, we have the setup. And then who's speaking? Oh, my goodness. The keynote is by Peter Daszak. The keynote is by Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance USA. Now, I don't recall Peter Daszak speaking at Event 201, do you? If I go to Event 201, who was speaking there? A bunch of people who are probably very rich and well-connected, but certainly none of these people are at the tip of anyone's discussion when it comes to talking about COVID-19, except maybe George Gao. However, if I look at this archived copy of the agenda for Event 101, I see it's being kicked off by Peter Daszak. Probably, I call him Dr. Pengala, the man who, is one of the co-founders, if you will, of EcoHealth Alliance. Of course, another co-founder is William Koresh, which people don't like to talk about because of his long time working with Annalisa Kilborn, who is the person who provided evidence or was given evidence that she then had to provide about the transmissibility of Ebola from apes or apes dying of Ebola back in the late late 1990s. And of course, she dies on a plane crash where the other 3 people walk away. Doesn't make any sense to me. And she had already worked with Nathan Wolf before the year 2001, as well as Tracy McNamara, who found the dead birds of the West Nile virus. But let's not talk about Annalisa Kilborn. Everyone else will just forget about her. Unfortunately, keeping her legacy alive for some reason is on me. While everyone else does their stupid, actually has belly laughs about dropping life expectancy. I'm haunted with all of these people who died suspiciously and have to keep their legacies alive. It's not a lot of fun. So it's being kicked off by Peter Daszak. All right. So later on, we see Scott Weaver, University of Texas Medical Branch. Now we have a Robert Malone person in there, in the Robert Malone Network. Who has Scott Weaver worked with? Again, Weaver is someone I haven't dug in extensively on my archive. And again, this is work that I did. So he worked on Zika, and that means that he worked with Robert Malone, Jill Glasspool Malone, probably David Hone, Peter Hotez. I can just imagine who else he has worked with. Again, I don't have an extensive page on him. started to go down that path. Maybe I'll have to go down it again eventually. So now we got a Robert Malone, David Hone, probably a Sina Bavari, and who knows what else connection there. Now we have Michael Diamond. That's interesting. Now, Michael Diamond was also involved in the Zika pandemic response. Where else has Michael Diamond been? What else has Michael Diamond been involved in? Diamond. Let's see here. So I got my Michael S. Diamond page. Let's see here. So he's worked with Timothy Allen Springer, Eva Harris. Oh my goodness. He's worked with Julie Gerberding. Let's see here. He was David Curiel, Laura Kramer. Now we have another West Nile virus connection here. Giuseppe Pino Ciaramella. So one of the key scientists at Moderna was Giuseppe Pino Ciaramella, or just Giuseppe Ciaramella. He left Moderna, I think, just after the pandemic. But Giuseppe Ciaramella also worked with him. And Michael Diamond was also on the scientific board of Moderna. So now we have someone who's worked with, again, another Zika virus person working with Robert Malone and so on. He's on the board of Moderna. I don't see many people on Event 201 on the board of Moderna, but I see them here at Event 101. Now we have the Zika virus, find me. Raman Rao, Takeda Pharmaceutical. I know he's connected to things that I just haven't had time to look up just yet. On Tuesday, who is presenting? Heinz Feldman. On Tuesday, we have the boss of Emmy DeWitt. On Tuesday, we have the boss of the person who took the very first electron microscope photo of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Did anyone at Event 201 take a photo of the SARS-CoV-2 virus? Or did they just play a high-quality production movie? To my knowledge, nobody at Event 201 was connected to taking the photo of the first SARS-CoV-2 virus. But at Event 101, we have the person's boss. The boss of the person who took the photo of the electron microscope photo of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Again, according to narrative, is at this event. Another longtime Robert Malone associate is at this event. Heinz Feldman also, he's the director of the Rocky Mountain Laboratory, by the way. He's also tied up completely with Sina Bavari and on Ebola research. He was also at the Canadian lab for 10 or 15 years, working side by side with Francis Plummer, Gary Kobinger, as well as Guan Gaoqia, that Chinese scientist who was accused of smuggling Ebola out of China and was arrested sometime in 2019 and I don't believe ever seen again. Heinz Feldman is there. Do you see any equivalent to this at Event 201? I don't think so. You only see this at Event 101. Now, continuing on, we got Heinz Feldman presenting again. Oh, my goodness. We have Ana Maria Haneo Restrepo. I just love saying that name. It's so much fun to say that name. But more importantly, she's the real bid director at the WHO. Every time that name, Virginia Benassi, was mentioned in the year 2020, the person who was that Virginia Benassi's boss was Ana Maria Haneo Restrepo. She's the real WHO, handles all the bids person. I found some interesting connections with her. I haven't gone that deep. Do you see any equivalent to Ana Maria Haneo Restrepo at Event 201? I don't think so. Now let's continue. Now we have zoonotic viruses. Again, I'm sure all these names are quite interesting. Andrew G. Bean. So we have all of these Australian scientists there, too, which immediately screams Five Eyes. Of course, David Hone, misspelled accidentally, I'm sure, is Davis Hone, and Bobby Kennedy's first book about the real Anthony Fauci. I think that was an intentional misspelling made by Robert Malone. Is also an Aussie, just for your information. On Wednesday, we have Lowenthal presenting. We have Ralph Barrick presenting. Now we have the person presenting and on a panel, who many say is caused SARS-CoV-2. There are people who say Ralph Barrick is individually responsible because he wanted to make extra money on patents or something like that. We have Ralph Barrick also here. Is Ralph Barrick at Event 201? I don't think so. No, he isn't. He just isn't. We have a bunch of other very powerful and wealthy people who are not part of the conversation at Event 201. But Ralph Barrick is at Event 101. Malik Pires, interesting person. Emerging virus disease at the animal-human interface. That's his presentation. He's also at the University of Hong Kong. And he's on some panels. And boy, does he give. He predicted the next pandemic would be soon, and it would be a coronavirus. And he says that on a panel sitting 2 seats over from Maria Koopmans, the WHO associate from the Erasmus lab, who was part of the investigation of that of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Not that I believe in a lab leak, but again, let's just go with the official narrative, right? Then we have more NIH, NIAID people, the omics of sex-specific MERS coronavirus severity in a transgenic mouse model. Okay. Anna Maria Restrepo again. Oh, my goodness. We have Marion Koopmans presenting here. So here we also have a presenter, and she was also on a panel discussion, the person who was part of that small crew from the World Health Organization that ran the inspection of the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2020, I think it was, with Peter Daszak. Again, is there an equivalent of this at Event 201, or is there simply a bunch of other very wealthy, well-connected people? Because I don't see any equivalent to Marion Koopmans here. I don't see, why is that not updating? I don't see an equivalent of Marion Koopmans here. I don't see Ralph Barrick here. I don't see Heinz Feldman here. I don't see Peter Daszak here. I don't see Ana Maria Henao Restrepo here. I don't see those names at Event 201. I see a lot of people looking at a lot of names that are very intriguing with many connections, but won't help you understand coronavirus like looking at Event 101 will. Linfa Wang, Duke Medical. Another, I think he was EcoHealth or One Health. I get them all confused after a while. SARS to SADS. EID, emerging infectious diseases caused by bat coronavirus. They're talking about bat coronaviruses here. Now, in the video at Event 201, they have a very nice high-quality video production of a bat, I think, or it's a pigs or whatever, causing the new pandemic. So at least Event 201 has that. But they were talking about it with extreme specificity here at Event 101. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. High on this list is Leo Poon, P-O-O-N. Now, we know that Ralph Barrick was on the Lancet letter, and I think Daszak and a lot of other scientists. Did you know that Leo Poon was also on the Lancet letter? There were several different letters, okay? It may be, if it wasn't the Lancet one, it was the one saying we need to defend the scientists or whatever. So if I'm technically a little bit wrong there, I apologize. But I know that Leo Poon worked with Ralph Barrick to name the SARS-CoV-2 virus. He was amongst the crew that named the SARS-CoV-2 virus presenting there. Is there, again, let's just keep bouncing back and forth here, ladies and gentlemen. Is there any equivalent to that at Event 201? No, nobody at Event 201 had anything to do with naming SARS-CoV-2. However, the crew seems to have showed up a year earlier to the day in Hong Kong that named SARS-CoV-2. And now the winner, Lee-Meng Yan, also is presenting there. And Thomas Schiller, a chief science officer at Gilead who oversees, over the past few years anyways, the development of remdesivir, is also there presenting shortly after our Lee-Meng Yan. And then in the afternoon, Marion Koopmans. We've already talked about that. And then it ends. So, here's the thing. What's the real event XXX? Was it Event 201? With these, very wealthy, most likely, very important, obviously well-connected, well-traveled, well-read, I'm sure, professionals, business leaders, diplomats, etc. I'm making no statement that these are unimportant people. Obviously, Avril Haines is an important person. Even if she was just, and again, I'm sorry, Dr. Haines. I don't mean this in a mean-spirited way, of course, or in a what's the right word? I can't think of the word right now. An ignorant way. But even if Dr. Haines was put into the role, no one gets put into the role of the head of national security without knowing how to compose themselves and having, a very solid base set of skills. I've been critical of Anthony Fauci before. I don't think he's the world's smartest scientist. But I'll tell you what, he knew exactly what he needed to do, what he could say, what he couldn't say, whose hand to shake, where to go, when, how to stay healthy, and so on for like 40 years. He had the tools necessary to do what was done, what they needed him to do when they put him in the position. The point, though, is none of these people will help you understand SARS-CoV-2. However, Event 101, we have the people who named the virus, the people who are blamed, these very specific scientists who are said to have caused the pandemic, the very specific people who were called to do the lab investigation, the very specific people that are leading scientific research at Gilead upon remdesivir, the very same people that are leading that are managing the electron microscopy photo of SARS-CoV-2 when it is discovered, the people that wrote the Lancet letter, and somehow or another, the star whistleblower, the scientist who didn't know, who didn't want to stop, who wanted to save the world, Lee-Meng Yan, who just magically shows up onto the scene, flown to the United States by the Steve Bannon Network somehow, winds up on all the shows to say, you gotta believe me. Of course, I can't do her accent, okay? You gotta believe me. The virus is real. It's really, really transmitting really, really fast. China's lying. So many people are dying. You gotta believe me. And Tucker Carlson goes, oh my goodness. You're awesome, Lee-Meng Yan. You're awesome. She validates worst case scenario and does the job that everyone else needed her to do. Did she say at any time in any of the hundreds of hours of interviews, you know what? I actually was side by side with Peter Daszak just a couple of years before the pandemic. Matter of fact, I spoke on the platform that Kizzmekia Corbett, who ran the Moderna trials, was at right there. My research was funded by Anthony Fauci and the NIAID. I was working with a bunch of people from Australia and Five Eyes. The person I cited the most frequently in my papers was Anthony Fauci. The conclusions on my paper was that we need a universal flu vaccine and mRNA. I was, attending this event with the boss of the person who took the photograph of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and, I was shaking hands with Marion Koopmans and everything else. And, oh, by the way, my boss, Leo Poon, was part of the small group that named the SARS-CoV-2 virus. At any point, did Lee-Meng Yan say that? No. Now, maybe she didn't say it because she wanted to protect the truth, but to protect some conspiracy. All right. She was never asked. The point is she was never asked. The point is no one wanted to ask her, meaning a lot of the people who have been trying to shepherd people to the truth and asking for PayPal money, meanwhile depriving other epidemics in the United States of the attention that they needed and causing, things like hospital protocols with high-flow oxygen to continue to go on murdering people. They knew she was there. And they didn't ask her, and they wanted to make sure she didn't say it. They know who Leo Poon is. They know she's worked for Leo Poon. I did want to go back to this symposium page, okay? If you go here, if you go to the year 2021, February 11th, someone wanted to do another snapshot of the site. I don't know why it's going so slow here. But on February 11th, 2001, if you go to the site, you'll see that it's now deleted. February 11th, 2021, excuse me. That's what I meant to say. February 11th, 2021, the site is now deleted for that symposium. They won't even tell you what the itinerary was. Other events. Now, this is only, 2.5 years after the event. So typically, events, these symposiums will keep their videos online for at least 4 to 6 years. Right? It's usually just like a 7-year legal thing, but the legal thing has nothing to do with this. This is just, you want, the legacy of the event to live on somehow. This event was wiped. The real event 101 was wiped. Meanwhile, you can still look at the real event 201. You can still look at the fake event 101. You can still look at the decoy. You can still look at the homicidal maniac Bill Gates funded one. You can't look at the original. There's no Ralph Barrick at 201. There's no Sina Bavari Network. There's no Heinz Feldman. There's no Marion Koopmans. There's no Thomas Schiller of Gilead. There's no Leo Poon. There's no Lee-Meng Yan. And all of the other names that I mentioned, they're not here. They were here. This is the real event 201. The real event 201 is here, and it was wiped. All I could find were 4 sessions, Lee-Meng Yan's, Kismekia Corbett. There's a panel discussion, and then there is a Dr. I want to say Valkyrie, but that's not right. Falkenberg or something of that nature. Those were the only 4 I could find. For some reason or another, they're still available on the symposium site. Now, maybe the other ones are still there. They're like shot. I can't find them. The URL is hidden. I'll keep looking. But the point is that this is the real event 201. And Lee-Meng Yan was part of it. And I think a lot of people knew, and they didn't ask her, or they were told not to ask her. And she certainly never volunteered the information. You've all been lied to. You've all been lied to. I was lied to. I apologize that I misled people because of my, I was predisposed to thinking lab leak, Lyme disease, etc. I've been wrong many times. I'll be wrong more times. But when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm genuinely trying to figure out what's going on myself. So I think that's it. That's it for the show, everyone. I think everyone owes you and all of us an apology. Not just because they lied, but because people are dead because of it. At the end of my show, you can hear a beautiful little girl say, "That's Grampy." Just think that little, that sweet little innocent voice had her dad die in a hospital. Thanks to these protocols made possible by the mythology of gain-of-function viruses and worst-case scenarios. God bless America, everyone. Have a great day. Love you.